I tell my leaders, né? I like to hear bad things, not good things. Don't come to me say, oh, everything is fine. Because this is for me to be happy, but it's not real. Come to me, say the things I don't like to hear.
Welcome to Elevate Utah.
Utah's Member One Growth Podcast.
I'm Court Brady.
I am Carlos Souza. And today we have a very special guest. I am particularly very excited for this one. We have Elcio Zanata with us. Elcio, just a little bit about his story. Elcio started a clothing brand in Brazil called Zen. After that, Elcio was a delivery and sales director for Franklin Covey in Brazil. Then after that, he was the managing director of Shiman, Brazilian Steakhouse, and had a parallel business called EOZ. It was a consulting firm that helped U.S.-based companies start operating in Brazil. And now he's the founder and the CEO of Aubergine, our favorite restaurant. I'm literally going there after this podcast. Elcio, thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Such a treat.
Yeah. And I'm very excited for our conversation.
Us too. I've been looking forward to this one. It seems, well, first question for you. How does it feel to own the best restaurant of Utah?
Well, thank you for saying that. I feel grateful because that was a dream for us to have a place where people can eat and feel good, feel different. Then they feel better. When they leave, they are better than they come. Different from many locations that we know that when you go, we eat, and then we leave, I need to lay on a bed. Low energy. Because food is fuel. It's for you to be energized, not the opposite. And I feel good to hear that when you say that.
I have so many questions about that because it sounds like you guys are on a mission to and something related to health. So I'm going to have some questions about that. I want to go back in time a little bit and it seems like you always have been this entrepreneur. You started a clothing brand many years ago. You also started your own consulting firm, now Aubergine. Where does that come from, that entrepreneur spirit that you have?
It's interesting because my dad was a farmer, and I followed the traditional path. I went to college in São Paulo, and then I started working for a company. But since the very beginning, I had some feeling that I wanted to start my own business. And then very soon after that, I created my first business. I mean, it didn't come from family, I would say. I had that desire to follow my own beliefs.
Was it because there's some really high-paying jobs? You have an MBA, you have a lot of experience. What attracted you to the entrepreneur world? What kind of freedom was that?
Yeah, I remember when I was in the last year of college, I did a project, 1-year project for Philips of Brazil in that time. And one lady told me, you can have, based on what we know from you can have a career like that. But here, you have to be like that. There is no way for you to grow. It was a different economic environment where people would grow based on the time they were working in the company, not by meritocracy. And then that thing, I didn't like to hear that. I say, I don't want to go there. I want to do this.
For those listening, it's the difference between linear and exponential. And then I started having this desire to have my own
business because then after I worked for other companies, great companies, no? And I want to do some change, but they didn't want to. I said, oh man, that's frustrating. I know that can help. And I said, I think the best way for me to start my own business, start to experiencing what I believed could get good results. No? Of course, many times I got bad results, but was a drive for me to try things. No?
Can we talk a little bit about those failures, those bad results? I'd love to hear what's been your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I started my own company with some partners, and after some years of success, there was a big economic recession in Brazil, and we had high leverage, debt leverage, and we had very hard moments. And then was a painful moment, a moment that I spent years for me to recover. It was it was a learning experience, of course. No? We grow a lot with this. And I learned a lot from this situation.
What were the main lessons?
The main lessons, it's every business, for you to have a long-lasting success, you have to have a higher purpose, bigger than ourselves. When we focus too much on ourselves, as the center, take advantage for us, it's a matter of time for you to start having big problems. When you think everything is because of you, that there is no higher power that commands us, that we don't have anything, we don't know anything here. We are just stewards from God for us to help people, to contribute. And then we start saying, okay, I am better than everybody else. Everything I do, it's because of me. And then you can start falling. We start having problems. And that moment, the high leverage we got as far as that leverage, because we're trusting too much on ourselves, in our capacity of I can do everything, and some personal desires and differences, and then we forgot to say, okay, what's the real purpose for that?
Okay, Elcio, you said for every business to have long-lasting success, and I might be paraphrasing a word or two here, you need to have a purpose that's bigger than yourselves. I love that, and I'd love to hear where the idea for Aubergine came from, how you started, and then what is this purpose that's bigger than yourselves that you have now?
Okay, great. When I was in my 40s, we decided to bring our children to BYU. And we were so attached, so let's go together. Even though I had business in Brazil, we moved here. And in that time, I was not very happy with my business. Even though it was very successful, I think it was lacking something, some fulfillment, some real purpose. And then I had so many dreams, but I lacked the energy to achieve those dreams, to pursue those dreams. And then I attended a seminar in California in 2005 with Tony Robbins. And the last day of the seminar was how to be healthier and have more energy. And that was a turning point in my life. It was one day. The seminar was 4 days, but one day was dedicated to that. And then that changed lots of paradigms of myself. And then I came back so excited. I said, Miriam, my wife, my beloved wife, her name is Miriam, and she's a master of cooking. And so we need to change everything, the way we live, the way we eat. And she didn't buy much the idea, neither my children. And then after 3-4 months, I took them to the same seminar. Let's go. And then they, wow. And then we start changing our lifestyle as far as eating. And we used to invite our neighbors and friends. They loved the food. Oh, that's healthy, but it's still tasty. That was the main challenge. People used to associate healthy food with tasteless.
My wife and I have a joke when one of us says something tastes good. We say, "Is it healthy good or is it actually good?"
Yeah. And then but we could make both, and they loved it. And then my children loved here. We loved here. They married Americans. So now it's time for us to open a business here. I start looking at some business and nothing touched my heart. And then I said, oh, maybe we should open, let's give back to the community, where they embraced us so much here. We felt so much loved here, great friends. Let's give to them what we have learned and we are eating at home. And then with 2 years of preparation, working hard in many recipes, we opened Aubergine in 2014, a little cafe, unknown. I remember one week before, we were having dinner with a neighbor and said, are you going to send soda? I said, no soda, because we want to give something healthy. Soda is pure sugar and chemicals. And then he said that no restaurant ever survived in Utah if they didn't have soda. That was a long night for me. But we stick to our guiding principles that we chose since the very beginning. And we opened and people start coming and never stopped.
So you started your first location in 2014.
In Orem.
In Orem.
Yes.
And then I'd love to hear more about when was the second one, the third.
Yeah, and then in 2016, I did a bold move. I opened 2 restaurants almost in the same time, Salt Lake City and Lehigh. And from 1 to 3 is 200% increase. Yeah. Complexities are more than that. You know that.
Yep.
And it was a hard moment for us. I wouldn't recommend that today. But in a way helped us to work harder and find ways to cope with the new challenges. And then in 2018, a consultant came to help us, good friend of us now. And then one day he said, do you want to be right or happy? Because you are trying to be right. For you to be happy, you have to compromise some things, some recipes, with cheaper products. I look at him and said, no, I want to be right and happy. I will never compromise our principles. It was hard, but paid off to stick to our purpose, our values, our guiding principles. And then COVID came. Before COVID, we planned 2 more locations, American Fork and Riverton. And then before we opened in January 2020, and COVID hit.
3 months later.
2 months later.
Oh my gosh.
My goodness. Our sales dropped 75%. And then we had to adapt. I never got desperate because I said, when everybody is in the same situation, everybody wants to help each other. When you are alone, I was alone in my financial problem many years ago. It's hard. But when we are in the same problem together as a community, we find solutions. I was never concerned about that. But we adapt the business and business start picking up. Because people start, what I eat determines my future, my health and everything. And then from there we start opening more locations. Now we have 11, and we are opening 4 more this year. That was the trajectory of Aubergine.
I think one of the mistakes that I have made, and I think other entrepreneurs make, is that we hear this idea of differentiated strategy. We keep saying, I need to be different. And we focus on being different instead of focusing on what is my core belief, what are my core principles, and how am I going to go execute that? And by nature of focusing on our core principles, we generally end up doing something that's different from everyone else.
Yes.
It sounds like that's what you guys did.
Yes. I think, of course, you need change for you to progress and grow. But every change, you have to have the other side, something that never changes. For you to have an anchor, a center. And this for me is our purpose. We create a purpose since the very beginning that's changing people's lives with real food. And we never change that. And we have some core values that drive our decisions that we never change. And we chose 7 health principles, guiding principles that we never change either. No sugar in our restaurant since the very first day. And no seed oil. Always use extra virgin olive oil. No fried products. Everything we bake. And then we chose 7 guiding principles, and we never deviate from that. Sometimes it's painful because it's so much more expensive. Just for you to have an idea, we use the date syrup, made with dates, the fruit, pure. It's 13 times more than refined sugar.
Wow.
Olive oil, extra virgin olive oil from Europe, is 8 times more than canola oil. And our pure vanilla is 15 times more than the imitation vanilla that ice cream shops use that has tons of chemicals that bring in the society, a sick society. And I think if we always stick to that and never deviate from that. The beginning was hard until you get momentum. You stay like this. It won't change, oscillating. But after, if when we stick to what we believe, people see it, the community see it. Every day someone stops in my restaurant and stops me and say, that's the only place I can eat and feel good. And this gives us more drive. I want to do more. I want to do better. I
was having this conversation yesterday. I was in Hawaii yesterday. So we came back to the snow here in Draper. But we were walking on the beach and talking about entrepreneurship and how it's so difficult to know which principles. You have to have those things that you hold on to and never change. And then you have to be willing to pivot on other things and be willing to try and get feedback and change. But some things you have to say, I am going to be right on this and not change. What's your decision-making framework for knowing which things to hold firm on and which things to change on?
Since the beginning, I think we detect this from our hearts. I say, I want to build something different from where I came from. Now with a real purpose. Always pursuing that purpose, never deviate, even though sometimes I lose some money to stick to that. Because the real test of purpose and values is when you lose money. In that very moment, you can say, is this my value? No, I'm losing money, I will change that. That's not your value. And then we chose 5 core values. Integrity. Always be true to what we preach. We have a value, continuous improvement. Every day we are trying to get our products, our process and systems better every day. And this is part of my DNA. I've been my life like that, trying to improve, grow, change. And we have other values. We define 5 values that we never compromise. Those are the ones we don't change. And beside that, we have our guiding principles for cooking. That we never deviate, as I told you before. No sugar, no fried products. I think this is important. The purpose and values that drive your decisions, you have to detect from your heart what you believe, what you want to give to the community. And that's the anchor that you never deviate. Even though the times are hard, you cannot never deviate that. And of course, you have to choose some audacious goals for you to keep progressing, keep growing. Like, we went from 1 to 3. It was audacious for us. 1 to 3, 200%. For a 1, of course, whoever has 100 and over 30 is less painful than 1 to 3. But that gave us what? Resilience. We start searching for answers, improving. That was good. That's the way we change and progress.
So tell me about your people. Every time I go to an aubergine, it's somebody from Brazil, usually, that's on the other side of the counter, that's making the food. What impact do the people have on the business, and how do you find your people, and what does the ideal employee look like for aubergine?
I mean, the ideal employee for aubergine is the one who fits to our culture. And our culture comes from these values. And where customers are very important. Teamwork is important. The openness for change is important. And that's, if they fit to that, they'll be happy. Regardless where they are from. We have people from all over the world. Many Americans, even people from Europe. We don't select based on that. We have diversity. But the most important thing, if they fit to our values, it's not about competence. Because they can learn, we can teach. But if they fit to our culture, they are happy and believe what we are doing, they are the right ones.
How do you identify if they're a cultural fit?
Of course, many of them are attracted by other employees. And then they already know and talk how we work, how we relate to each other, what's important or what's not important. And this helps a kind of selection process. But many people come and don't fit and leave. This happens too. There is no way for certainty that everybody who will come will be right.
I feel like a lot of businesses have the philosophy that core values and cultural fit are really important for the executive team. CEO, those members, and even mid-level managers for sure need to be a cultural fit. But they have this mentality that frontline workers, we could just churn. There's going to be a lot of turnover, so let's just hire whoever we can get, whoever's the cheapest. That's not what I feel. No,
I think that it's the opposite. Who is in touch with the customer? The most important thing are the front lines. And even though they can leave the company soon, if you create a culture that they understand, because culture we feel, né? If you go to a place, you feel what the culture is more than what they say, né? I think that's the main investment, né? If everybody has to believe in that culture. Is it easy? No, it's not easy, né? It's very hard.
Can you talk a little bit to that? Because I feel like the culture of a company is just an expansion of the integrity and value set of the founder, which means that, or the CEO, which means that there's a lot of pressure on you always to act in alignment with your culture.
Of course,
'Cause
and
if
they
there's
are
a crack in your culture, it spreads to the world.
Yes, we are being tested 24 hours a day. The employees are testing me all the time. What you say is according to your actions, né? Of course we have pressure. This is a good pressure. It's a good pressure because they keep us on the right track. Because we are weak people, everybody. No, we have weaknesses. Né? And sometimes we lose focus of the big picture. Huh? But the employees, they put us on the right track. And that's great.
Sometimes some CEOs, their employees try and put them on the right track, but the CEO has a lot of influence.
Of course, of course. I tell my leaders, né? I like to hear bad things, not good things. Don't come to me say, oh, everything is fine. Because this is for me to be happy, but it's not real. Come to me, say the things I don't like to hear.
You're the freaking perfect CEO. And I know you wouldn't say that. You're not portraying that, but these are all of the principles that.
Yeah, but I know this because I
success.
failed before. I was the opposite. Nah? I want to hear just, if they would bring a problem, I would get mad. I just want to hear something good. That's the reason I failed. And then I learned then that problems are part of our growth. We need problems every day. Né? Because otherwise you don't grow, you don't progress. Né? And then when you start thinking about that, you don't see problems as a problem anymore. Né? Oh, what's the solution? How can we grow with that? Huh? And that's the idea. Né?
Every problem's an opportunity.
As an opportunity. Sometimes it's painful. Huh?
Yes.
And sometimes
It's always painful.
Yeah, I have a good solution when I have a big problem. Né? The best solution I found, I'll go to bed very early. Because next day, the problem is not as big as today.
Huh.
Yeah. When I start thinking too much, instead of spending hours during the night thinking, let me go to bed. And interesting because next morning, I don't know, it's a new spring. Né? You see differently.
Yeah.
Huh?
We recently had an executive meeting at our company, and it was a turbulent time. We had people leaving. We were going, through, there's some macroeconomic trends right now that are impacting. So it's chaotic. And then at the end, and I'm feeling the heat, right? I'm trying to make decisions. We're cutting some costs. And at the end of our meeting, our controller says, isn't this what makes it fun? And then I was like, I can't believe you're saying that. This is the worst, I thought to myself. But hearing you say that just made me think of him. He's always saying, no, the problems is what makes work fun. Like it's what gets me out of bed every day. Yeah. And that's because he sees those as areas of opportunity, growth, and one thing that I noticed when you're talking about the core values, I have seen entrepreneurs get in a room with their team and start working on identifying their core values for the business. And what I've seen is a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs choose values that sound cool or values that they want the company to have. It sounds like your approach was, what are my values? And those would be the business values, because they're almost the same. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
That's great. Great question. I think for you to have integrity to your values, you have to choose something you do believe. Otherwise, you fail with the first test. No? And of course, I have a value that's about customer. No? Maybe it was not in my heart about the value customer. No? But it was in my heart the importance of the other, of people. No? That switching to the business became the value for the customer.
You found a way to communicate.
The belief.
I love that.
Like I always want to give back to the community. No? Because I cannot imagine how I still, as a foreigner, someone who speaks a broken English, different culture, start a business when I was 55, and many neighbors came many times the week for me to succeed. And then this desire to give back, and then is aligned with the value we have, to make our customers happy.
Does it make the journey a little bit easier?
Oh, much easier and much more fun.
Not easy, but easier.
Yeah, restaurant business. Business is hard. Restaurant business is brutal, as a friend told me. Restaurant business is brutal.
Every time we go into we were just at a yogurt shop the other day. We were like, how is this place surviving? We start doing the math, and so I bet.
Yeah, it's brutal, but it's fun. And when you have that philosophy, the ideology, purpose and values in your heart, and striving to live that every day, work is not work anymore. Becomes fun. I was approached for people willing to buy my business, and I could play golf every day for the rest of my life. But I hate golf.
I want to be you when I grow up.
But I love to spend time with my family. That I spend time with my family. I love traveling. I do traveling business and personal. And I love to work and to contribute. And then for me, work is fun. I don't see as I don't want to retire. I remember once I came to pick up my son in an internship program. When he was 15, and there was a speaker in the Rotary Club. It was Dr. Covey, my mentor. And I remember he said, "Life is not a career. Life is about contribution. Therefore, we should never stop contributing." The idea of retirement for you to play golf every day is not good for us, because we need, that's a human need, to contribute, to make difference in the world.
Can we, I think that's a perfect segue into, we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, you're writing a book, you're about to finish the last chapter. We don't have a title yet, but when the title comes out, if it comes out before this episode airs, we'd love to put the link in the title in the episode, and we can surely add it after the episode's already posted. What's the book about?
Yes, with this idea of giving back to the society, that we start Aubergine. I said, many people ask me this question. How did it come from, the idea, why Aubergine is growing? And I said, maybe it's time for me to share stories and principles that I have learned with failures, with successes. No? And then, after many years of learning, pondering, watching successful people, and making lots of mistakes, I came up with importance of having 4 imperatives for life, for you to have a long-lasting happiness. No? And there are 4 pillars. No? I think it's important, very important for us to grow. We can never stop growing. We need that. No? Growing through knowledge, searching knowledge, doing things, trial and error. But we have to keep growing, never stop growing. If there is growth, there is light. And people around you love to be in an environment of growth. If nobody wants to leave a winning team. Therefore, growth is very important. Personal growth and professional growth. And the other pillar is about conscience. There is nothing worse in life than a troubled conscience. It's painful. Instead of light, you see darkness. You start making wrong decisions. And then it's very important to educate our conscience, for us to be able to make wise decisions. I have observed that people who have a clear conscience, and they make much better decisions and choices. They still make mistakes, but not mistakes that will impact big results. And the other pillar is about contribution, another need we have. We need to contribute. I already spoke about this. And we can contribute in many ways, small ways, big ways. But important for us to always think about other people more than us. How can I live here and people feel better now than when I came? I think that's important, interaction. When I visit my employees, I talk to them or compliment them, and they feel better. I think this is a human need we have. And we don't need to be Elon Musk. Everybody can do that. Can be small things. Or I remember once I was in the airport in São Paulo. I was traveling, and there were in the baggage claim. There was an old man close to me. I knew him because he was had some relationship with my father-in-law, but I didn't have much relationship with him. And he was probably 75 years old, and he had 2 huge luggages. I jumped, grabbed the 2 luggage, put in a cart for him, and left. 1 month after, I was having dinner in a restaurant with my wife, and a lady came and said, my dad never stopped talking about you. Well, why me? And then she explained, because you got 2 luggage and put in the car. A simple act. He said he never stopped talking about me. I didn't think about doing that, natural things. But if we nurture our heart in always be contributing, helping people, lives change. And the 4 pillar, that's the core for you to be able to grow, have a clear conscience, and contribute, is to have vitality, energy, and be healthy. I think that's so important, because if you are not healthy or don't have energy, you cannot contribute. You cannot do things. Of course, there are some cases that it's hard for people because they have some disease, serious conditions. But when you are in the control yet, it's important for us to nurture our bodies, because you think clearly. We know that people who consume lots of sugar, they don't think right. Because our cells, brain cells, needs good things for us to think clearly. And I think that's what excites a lot for me, is we can control our destiny as far as health is concerned, most of the times. There are exceptions, of course, but we can be under control. Unfortunately, America is sick. We know that. We have information. The MAHA movement, Make America Health Again, putting aside politics, that's a need. Aubergine started in 2014. And this excites me because it's transformation, from food that harms to food that heals. A friend of mine, a doctor, he said most of his patients, he is a functional doctor, are kids from 7 to 14. They have developed a chronic disease. Wow. Can you imagine that? A boy, 7-year-old, has chronic disease. What's the cause of that? The food we eat. The processed foods, the sugar, everything has chemicals. We messed up with the food. That's the reality. Simple things. I know that's hard to change. I know that's hard to cook every day. But we can start slowly. If we start comparing to, is this better or worse? And doing start reading the labels. This helps.
Can I ask you a question, Elcio?
Yes.
You said so you have these 4 pillars, which I love, kind of 3 pillars and then one wrapper around all of them. You have grow, your conscience, contribution, and then vitality and energy kind of wraps all 3 of those up, puts a bow on top. You talked about when you were younger, you didn't necessarily have these same values, and you went through this transformation over time. You went to the Tony Robbins event. You had these different moments in your life. If somebody is at point A and they hope to get to point B, and point B is a change in their core, like how they function in paradigm shifts and how they see the world, what's the best route that you would prescribe to that person to have a new paradigm?
I think first thing you have to have an open mind. Because every day we are challenged by new paradigms. And to change paradigm is very difficult, more than we think it is. You grew up doing something. I remember I was talking to my son. He has some problem in the knee. And then I was talking to my wife when he was a kid. He had some problem of bronchitis. And we used to take him to the hospital for him to get some oxygen. And then when he would be back at home, my wife would get milk, some chocolate with sugar, and added honey and give to him. Next day he was worse. Of course. And then for you, because this came from culture. My parents, my wife's parents, grandparents, And then for you to break this cycle, you have to be very bold, open-minded, bold, and looking ahead. Né? How do I want to be in 30 years from now? Né? How do I want to be with my wife, with my kids, my grandkids and great-grandkids? Né? I think you have to have this open mind. I think it's the first thing. Né? I want to change my paradigms. I want to challenge my paradigms. Second, you have to search. Né? I was in Brazil. I was not very happy. And I started looking for books to bring me some light. Né? And once I found out about the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that book changed my life. Because I saw principles. Dr. Covey used religious principles that every religion accepts. Né? And he called the true principles. Né? And then there was a light for me. And then after, I kept searching for, I want to see more. And then I remember I met Tony Robbins. Né? He made a change in my paradigms for the better. Né? And never stop. You can never stop. That's the idea. Searching, testing, and not be skeptical. Né? I saw many people who, when I worked for Franklin Covey in Brazil, we used training many people, and some would say, oh, but this doesn't work. Né? Very skeptical. Né? I think if we those 3 things, open mind, or prepared for big change and hard change, that's change paradigm, the way you see the world. This is hard to change. Open for that, search for knowledge and for new light, né? And then don't be skeptical and implement. Instead of I have a list of 20 things I want to change. No, choose one, but make it happen. After 2, make it happen. And I think the most important thing is execution, more to have a beautiful list of 10, 20 things.
There's one of my favorite scriptures was when Jesus is speaking to the people and they're saying, is this doctrine that Jesus is speaking coming from God or is it his own? And his response is John 7:17. He says, if any man will do his will, he'll know the doctrine, whether it's of God or whether I'm a man. Yeah. It feels like that's execution. That's execution. You go do it, and then you'll know. And then the skepticism goes away because you see the results for yourself.
Yeah. And he's not saying you have to learn. He said, do it.
Yeah.
Né? Execution. Né?
Yes.
And everything comes from God and Christ. Né? We have all the teachings. Né? If you go deep in marketing decisions, they are also in the scriptures. Né? Everything is there. Yes, because they are principles that in any situation they are applicable. And of course, we are saying this here. I think the most important thing is God's hand. Because I don't, my mind is limited. For me to be able to create that, only with God's help. If I, as Steve Jobs said, look at back, the dots connect.
I love that quote.
But I went to college. I learned my graduation is in industrial engineering. It's about systems. And then I had business in Brazil with multi-locations that help, the engineering program helped me. And then a friend of mine invited me to run a restaurant business in Florida that I didn't have any clue about. And then I didn't want. And I accepted because he would apply for my green card just for this purpose. But because of those things, Franklin Covey helped me with leadership. But because of those things, I was able to open Aubergine multi-locations. Living a dream because I'm so passionate about our purpose. You see, the only way for you to explain this is through God's hands. There is no way to plan that. I was my program, industrial engineering. The main focus was planning, programming, and scheduling production. And everything about me was planning. I was a planning man, planning everything. And then after a while, I thought, man, I can plan, but I have to open to other things. And then how could I have planned to have 7 American grandkids being born in a small farm in Minas Gerais, in Brazil? There is no way to plan that. It's only God's hands.
I just have one more question. Anything you want to ask before we wrap, Carlos?
No, I just want to say that, Elcio, I could sit here and listen to you all day. It's been enlightening and a joy for me to just hear you. So I've enjoyed this a lot. You can ask your question. I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I second that. Such a privilege to listen to you. Last question. If you got to sit across from a former version of Elcio, what version would you choose to sit across from? How old would he be? What's he going through? And what advice would you give him?
That's a tough question. How old he would be?
Yeah.
He would be maybe 24 when I got married. And tell him the most precious thing you can ever have is your wife now. And then after, it will be your children. Therefore, the main focus of your life is to help her. Your role is not, you are marrying her not for her to help you. It's for you to help her. Because fortunately, I have a beautiful marriage, beautiful family. And at the beginning was more because of my wife, and because I was so involved in working. But soon enough, when my son was 5, my daughter was 2, I realized this and start putting emphasis on my family. And now I have the great fruits from that. But took some time for me still to understand that my role as a husband was to serve my wife. And then when that click happened, man, everything changed for the better. And then this impacts the whole other areas of your life, your profession, everything. And my wife she has been working with me for almost 40 years. We work together. We never have fights in business, anything.
Well, that means we need another podcast with her sitting right next to you.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's much better than me.
Thank you, Elcio. This has been amazing. Aubergine's amazing. I know why from what you put into it and the person you are. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank
It was
you so
great,
much.
great moment for me.
Thank you.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.